My reflection this week is based on the scripture passage from Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus continues explaining to his apostles, those he's sending out into the world, what they will face in the world and all the trials that they will undoubtedly experience. So this reflection is based on that little bit of his speech. Fear. We learn to fear the world around us early in life. We are taught to be afraid of falling, afraid of the stove, afraid of the stranger, afraid, perhaps, even of those closest to us sometimes. Fear is a powerful motivator in our society. Fear sends us into debt, fearing we won't have enough to live a good life. It infiltrates our workplaces as we do whatever we need to do, even when it's morally wrong, because we're afraid of losing our jobs. It fills the public messages of our political system and its party operations. It moves us to conform to ways that we might not otherwise choose in order to keep our status in the community, fearful of losing ground. Jesus speaks right into the fear of the apostles in the scripture reading today. He is talking with his apostles about what they will face when they go out to carry his message and his ways into the world. Jesus doesn't pull any punches with his words. He's brutally honest with them. He speaks of persecution and imprisonment. He tells them of hardships of all sorts. He talks to them about how even families can be divided by fundamental differences in worldview. He tells them that they will have to leave behind everything they have known and become almost new people to carry the message and the manner he has set for them. That's a tall order, intimidating, fear-filled, almost impossibly difficult. You'd think he would just be encouraging them, not frightening them. Yet Jesus has always been honest with people. Remember the rich young man? Jesus says, "Take everything you have and give it to the poor. Then you can come and follow me." Remember Zacchaeus? "You must be born again." No, Jesus has no hesitation in naming just what it means to follow his ways and speak the truth about the kingdom of heaven here on earth. You see, Jesus knows that fear can bring about a failure in discipleship. His followers have courageously left their homes and families to go with him on his ministry journey, proclaiming the advent of God's realm. But they too know the power of fear because they have felt it already. They know how much that fear may weigh on them, and on the journey that Jesus is commissioning them to take, it will become even worse. These are people for whom fear is real. Their fear will end up having one of the most dedicated among them, Peter, deny even knowing Jesus. It will have them fleeing the scene of his crucifixion. It will have them cowering in hiding after his death. Faithful practice and proclamation of Jesus' message of grace and justice will inevitably bring them onto a collision course with the powers of the world and with the status quo of their society. People will object, resist, and respond, often with rejection, sometimes even with violence. They go as sheep among the wolves, Jesus says, and will face arrests and beatings and imprisonment, and even opposition from their families. Jesus boldly names these things that his apostles might fear. And naming them, he tames them. He brings the fears out into the open, where they can be seen, addressed, and evaluated. And then he goes further. He builds the case that they need not carry that fear with them, that it need not hinder their witness to the kingdom. They have, he tells them, all that they need to shout the message from the rooftops as they go on their way. As he continues to describe the worst case scenarios they might endure, he also gives them reassurance that they are not alone, that their mission is God's mission, and that he affirms the deep relationships they have with God, and through him with God. So have no fear of them, he says. The most powerful tool they have in the face of the powers of the world that would deny their message and their mission is the gospel itself. The good news that the kingdom of heaven is near at hand. That gospel, that good news, is powerful enough to counter anything the world can bring to bear against them. Even though God is the only one who has the power to destroy both body and soul, God is not like that, Jesus tells them. God cares even for the sparrows, which the world hardly values. And if that is the case, then how much more does God value the lives of the apostles on their mission? Jesus acknowledges that his message of the kingdom will anger the powers of the world, and they will respond with violence sometimes, with the sword. To make that proclamation, he says, is to put oneself in the ultimate danger, the danger of death. The disciples must set aside all their identities that they have carried, their vocations, their skills, even their families, in order to put all their efforts towards this mission of proclamation, because that is what it will take to withstand what they will face. They will have to take up their cross, a metaphor saying that they will have to devote their whole lives to the task in order for it to be successful. Jesus is asking a lot, but he knows that they are up to the task. It's like that with us too. We are tasked with proclaiming the good news of the kingdom to the world in how we live, what we say and do, the choices we make, the ways we engage with others and engage with the powers of our world. And we too are fearful. We don't want to face rejection or ridicule. We don't want to lose status. We're afraid our allegiance to the grace-focused message of Jesus may get in the way of our comforts and security. Yet we too have what it takes to do all that. And sometimes we actually do what it takes. In our best moments, we too are faith-filled disciples, apostles of Jesus and the kingdom of heaven. We resist the temptation to cave in and go with the flow. We take the hard steps of justice seeking and reconciliation. We address the oppression of people near and far and face down the powerful economic, political, and social forces of our time and places. We do that sometimes. So our own fears don't have to hamstring us. We can name them, face them, and overcome them with Jesus' help, with God's presence, with the Spirit's embrace. The question, of course, is will we actually do that? Will we do that more often than we manage right now? Will we let the Spirit guide us along the difficult path of following the ways and message of Jesus as his apostles for our time and place? We have the choice. We can be committed Christians or not. And make no mistake, committed Christians will face difficulties. They will have trouble getting the message across, however they try to do that. They will find themselves isolated sometimes, feeling alone with their view of the world, out of step with society. It's uncomfortable. It's distressing. But again, sometimes that's what it takes. We have to put ourselves in that place of being different from the many, outside the mainstream. We have what it takes. Do we have the will to face our fears and walk the path of discipleship anyway? Amen.